All right, so Miss Mackins, thank you for coming in today. So over the course of this year, so you teach fourth grade, and over the course of this year, we've talked about several different things. And I know that one of them has been the small group instruction piece. Now, my philosophy as an administrator is I think that for students, small group instruction is crucial as far as moving kids, filling in those gaps, things of that nature. Talk to me about your small group instruction. Like, how do you think it's worked this year in your classroom?
Well, it's been a little bit of a challenge this year. Just trying to manage everybody kind of doing their own thing while I'm trying to teach and working with the kids and having this group over here doing what they need to do, and then this child over here, and I've got that one problem child that could always use an extra set of hands. But I've tried, but sometimes it just seems like the whole group is just easier for me to manage everybody and have everybody on task and engaged all at the same time.
So I heard you say the management piece, and when you say the management piece, do you mean management as far as behavior, or do you mean management just as far as figuring out the whole arena of small group instruction?
Well, just working with my teammates, I kind of understand, the big picture of it, but I think most of it is the behavior management, making my centers last long and engaging, and just trying to keep everybody, on task is the hardest part.
And I think that's a good observation from your end. I know you talked about your team, and the unfortunate part is, this year we only had 3 teachers in 4th grade, so therefore you were the only ELA teacher, and so that makes it hard because you don't have another teammate that you're able to to go and observe and bounce those ideas off of. I know you went and had a chance to observe the way 5th grade does their small group instruction time. Do you think that was helpful, or?
It was, but they have some other challenge. Their class sizes are a little bit smaller, so it would be nice if that was able to play in. But it just some little things that were different about it.
And you know what? And I'm glad you said that, because that takes us right into the next part of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is 4th grade has typically always been, larger class sizes. I mean, we're talking, when I think your biggest class had 29 kids
Mm-hmm.
last year. So, that does present a bit of a challenge. Having 29 children, having, not a huge classroom, it's an adequate classroom, but not having a huge classroom, for example, like a kindergarten or 1st grade teacher. And then also going into what our realities are right now. We spoke a little earlier about, your whole group instruction, which I think is top notch. I think that everything from the engagement to the different parts of the lesson, the assessment piece, I think, the whole group is good. But I think, obviously, what we need to help improve on is your environment for your small group instruction. And, that's important, because that's going to aid, filling those gaps and aid those kids as far as the differentiation piece is concerned. So I know that, when you came here, like, you've been here, what, 2 years now?
Mm-hmm.
And so you came from private school,
Mm-hmm.
correct? And correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't do small group teaching there?
No.
So you've kind of got a limited experience, which is kind of our obstacles here. You've got limited experience with that, plus the fact of the large class sizes, plus the 1 or 2 students. I know you mentioned that, need more supervision and guidance. It's hard for them to do independent things. So what I would love to do is, first of all, let's talk about, what is it that you think the other kids could or should be doing while you're with a small group?
Just from what I've seen in other classes, they're working independently. Some are working independently on skills that they're lacking. Some are working on just trying to reinforce skills. And I think maybe one of the things and maybe that I'm trying to do too much at the beginning, like trying to do almost more trying to tailor more to individual needs rather than maybe at this point I should work on like some, bigger group
That's a very good
type
point.
things
Very
maybe.
good point.
'Cause I feel like maybe I'm trying to do too much.
Very good point. I would say, if we were putting in a list of priorities, number one, you're going to put them in groups according to similar levels.
Okay.
So you're a little familiar with TRC. So let's say that we have a group of students and you've got 4 students on a J, 5 students on a K. Well, those 4 J's can all kind of be together working on the same type skill stuff. Then we've got that next 5 group of K or 5 students that are K. They can be together working on the same type of skill stuff. Let's say that you've got 3 students who are an M and 2 students who are an N. Well, those levels are really close enough that can make you another group. I would definitely advise that. I would definitely advise that we don't want our groups to be larger than 5 kids at the most, because then that's where you get the whole behavior piece and working together and things of that nature. One thing that I think is crucial for any person doing this, no matter if you've been doing it for 2 years or 12 years, is that in the beginning of the year, you've got to teach the kids how to do groups. And it may not be that you're giving them work to do, or you could be giving them some review work to do while you're teaching this, but in the beginning, you may not be pulling groups for the first 3 weeks while you're teaching them, or you may pull limited groups. You've got to really teach them, okay, this is what we do during small group instruction. This is when you bother the teacher. This is when you don't bother the teacher. Some teachers will have like a lamp or a hat that they may wear or turn the lamp on when it is small group instruction time, because that time is protected so that kids aren't bothering you. But that goes back into the teaching piece of you've got to teach them what to do and how to make decisions independently without bothering you. I know when I was teaching, you only came to me if someone was bleeding, someone was dying, or something like that. So I don't think that you'll have a problem planning the lesson for the kids, because you plan very well. It's just it's a bigger lesson cut down. I think the thing that you'll have to get over is the whole management piece of making sure that the other kids are doing what they need to do while you're with your group. So let me ask you this question. Would the other kids that are in the classroom, are they doing brand new stuff, or are they doing things that they already know how to do? What kind of work do you see them doing?
Well, if the group that I'm working with, if my attention to them is the priority, then the other kids I would think would need to be doing some stuff that they can do independently. So it would need to be stuff that they don't need me for.
So it's stuff that basically they've been taught before. You've done this stuff, whole group. But it could be that you've noticed that, okay, well, these 5 kids really need to work on, I don't know, let's say fact and opinion. And, these 5 kids have got some holes when it comes to theme and plot of the story. So that the centers that they're in are centers where they're sharpening those skills and reviewing, but the tasks that you're asking them to do are things that they can do independently. Does that make sense? So what I'd love to do right now is really go and kind of point out a few examples to you. So let's move over to the computer and we'll go from there. All right, so what we're gonna look at real quick is I want you to kind of look at the way that she's got her kids arranged and look at some of the ways that she's starting her instruction piece.
Take a second. Peek at the cover. Is this buggy or is that okay? You want me to move it? It's okay? Okay. Alright, what's one thing you notice about the cover? Devin? There's a penguin. There's a penguin. What do you notice? Penguin is selling hot chocolate. Okay. Ooh, you're even reading the sign.
Okay, and I want to point out to you, do you see how she's kind of got all her stuff that she would
Mhm.
need back there at the table? That's more of an organizational piece. So she's got everything that she needs back there. So she's got all her supplies, she's got her books and everything. So if she needs something, it's not like she's having to waste 2 or 3 minutes by getting up and going to
Right.
find it. It's all right there for her.
And it's snowing. When do you drink hot chocolate? When do you drink it? Devin?
Usually in the winter.
In the winter? Do you think that the setting of this book is in the winter? Yeah. Why? What tells you on it?
Okay, so now what do you notice about her other kids?
It looks like they're just doing a lot of independent reading mostly.
So we see some independent reading. I do see some kids that are like writing.
Right, yeah. I would assume there's an assignment that she's got them doing with their either with their independent reading that they're doing or maybe the last group that she had.
And so I think I saw also this little group right here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could just be that they're two kids sitting beside each other, or it could be that they're in a group. But you see that everybody is not necessarily in a group.
Right.
So that's kind of your, discretion, your
Right.
professional opinion, whether, they need to be in groups doing stuff like that, or whether it can look like this, or
Mhm.
who knows, we could have, all three of these kids doing the same assignment, but they're not necessarily in a group doing it.
Uh-huh.
They're just, they're doing the same assignment, but they're independently doing it.
The cover that the setting is probably in the winter or summer that's cold. Who's these? Penguins can't be when it's hot. Very good. Okay. Couple words to start us out.
So again, this is the part that I think that, this is exactly what you do during your whole group. So I think that, this is, you'll be totally fine, making plans to instruct the small group. The thing that you've got to be keen on is what are all the rest of those kids doing? And also you notice her noise level in her
Mhm.
classroom is,
Very
It's-
non-existent almost.
yeah, it's very quiet.
Boy, very good. If you boil
So I would say that on the front end, she's done a lot of prep in training her kids. Okay, what do we do
Uh-huh.
during this time? Because as you can also see, no students have come up to bother her.
Right. Well, and even the ones that are picking out books are just doing a really good job of just picking out books and going back to their seat
Mhm.
and doing what they need to do rather than, gathering at the bookshelves. I could see my
Mhm.
students gathering at the bookshelves and kind of
heated it
have an
today.
extra
Oh, you do it?
chat
Oh, I'm doing
session
it right now.
or, playing around there.
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, if you notice that kid, she actually came over, put a paper down or exchanged a paper or something, but didn't say anything to the teacher. Now I do notice this little man over here in the blue. Seems like I done seen him wandering for a little bit.
Describe what frozen means. What is frozen?
So for a student like that, would I just wait until I'm finished with this group and then maybe address his needs and get him back on track? Or once these guys start working on something, go talk to him? Or
I would say either or. You just kind of got to play it by whatever the situation is doing. If it's something so serious that he needs to be redirected while you're with the kids, okay. But if it's something that doesn't seem so serious, like just getting back on track, then I would probably wait until you get this group started
Okay.
and then address him.
okay.
But I think that also comes back into the whole accountability piece. The kids need to understand that you have a job to get done.
Right.
And so that you're going to be checking for that job. So that's going to hopefully engage him to get his job done.
In the story is between pages 2 and 9. I want you to stick your little arrow on it when you find the problem. Beginning sound on that. For a problem. Do you see a
So we're just kind of going to go through this. And as you see, I still have not seen one child
So do you want to continue
come
on
up
that
to her.
next
So let's stop this one. And let's look at a different one that is actually math as well.
Times 9. Is my 9 the correct way?
Good, sometimes I can't write upside down. All right, you're up, sir. What number do you have? Ooh, our first one in the center. Kyle, why did Andrew put this in the middle? Ooh, okay, so we know it's a factor of 30, and we know it's a multiple of 3. Now, Tegan, I want you to repeat what Kyle just said. Why is this going in the
So
middle?
you see how you notice a little bit more
Mhm.
chatter
There's a little
going on in this one.
But it's still not loud or distracting from the group, it appears.
Mm-hmm,
So it seems like it's still controlled.
Because it's a factor of 30.
Prove to me it's a factor of 30. Why?
Because then do 3 times 10 and get 30. And also, for multiples of 3,
But as you can see with her also, like it looks like she's got all her supplies and things that she needs over here.
it is 3, so it has
You got
to be
it.
multiple.
You got it. It's the first one. So how
But
do we
then
get
from a
3?
management aspect, you see the kids that she's working with, their backs are to the rest of the group
Right.
so that they're not getting distracted.
Mm-hmm.
But her, the way she's facing, she can see the rest of the
Right.
class. So you've got to think about that when you're arranging, your area because, and this is a typical arrangement, but this way she's still able to see the rest of the class.
Right.
Do you want to multiply T?
You do.
You got it. All right. I'm going to give you a 1.
So
more
let's
before you
fast
turn,
forward
Okay? Where is it going to be?
and see if we get a shot of her. I don't think we get a shot of the rest of her kids.
Okay, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Talk about your labels. Okay? There might be some labels in there where they're only going to be in common, or there'll be nothing in common. Okay? And it's better for you guys to kind of talk about that right off the bat.
So he or she has
Picked out these 2 labels.
those kids back there for like about 10 minutes or so. Like, what would be the ideal time?
Yeah, that's something I want to talk to you about, but we'll talk about that when we
Okay.
go back over to the thing. What I did want to point out to you before we finish this video is if you look at this point, you see how she's got the group, but at the same time, she's able to focus on 2 kids
Like
within
a group
the group.
within a group.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so this is something that you could do throughout your lesson. It again, it's just like when you're teaching a whole group lesson, and you're talking, but then you may call on one kid or call on a group of children, and so that's kind of what she's doing here. Is she's giving them a little independent time of just her and them, and we're talking about 30 seconds to a
Right.
minute.
Mm-hmm.
So she may help him, then she may help another kid in the group, so
Right.
forth and so on.
Just a quick fix of what they're doing.
All right, so we mentioned over there, so let's talk about the timepiece.
Yeah, sometimes
So-
I have a really hard time just cutting off my whole group to even get to the small group in the centers.
And so that we if you look at the history, it used to be a lot of whole group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well then we moved down to more of kind of a mini lesson type whole
Right.
group. So if you look at your schedule, and actually your schedule this year will hopefully have some of this broken down for you. But if you look at your schedule, let's say that we're doing a 20-minute mini lesson, okay? So then let's say we're doing probably about 15 minutes or so of, guided / independent practice, which is where basically the kids are, working on using whatever strategy it is that you just did in your mini lesson. So when we're talking about this is only 35 minutes.
Right.
So we're really talking about smaller chunks of learning that are going deeper versus this big, huge topic that we cover for an hour. Does that make sense? And I know, you've done a good job at that this year, and I think, just making sure that this is tight, making sure that this is concise, will really help you stay on your time limit. So then let's say that we've got a total of 45 minutes for your entire small group instruction. So 45 minutes, I would say, you could probably do, if you did 15 and 15, that's you seeing 2 groups a day. So that could kind of be 15 minutes of you with a group, kids doing other work. Then you're gonna switch, you're gonna take on a group, and the group that just left you is gonna go do one of the centers or the sets of work, that either they need or the other kids were doing. If you broke it down any further, and let's say you only did, 10 minutes, I mean, you could see more groups, but 10 minutes is gonna really rush you
Right,
as far as the group that you're working with. So I would say, let's plan to try this, okay?
okay,
Let's say that let's plan for you to try 15 for group 1.
now if my groups have got 5 to 6 students in them, I'm looking at 5 to 6 groups in the class.
Okay, this is
So
true.
where's my priority, if I'm only seeing 2 groups a day?
Well, number 1,
Mhm.
your priority is gonna be your lowest children,
Okay,
because they're gonna be the group that you need to see most likely every day.
okay,
So they're always gonna be a consistent group. Then of course you work your way down. So your own grade level kids, you're gonna probably see them, I would say, at least 3 to 4 times a week. And then your above grade level kids, you may only see once or twice a week.
okay.
So you know what? I take that back. I think actually it's not 45, it's 60.
Okay,
That's what your guided time is gonna be.
okay.
So let's
That
say,
helps, having
yeah.
that extra 15 minutes.
So let's say that you broke it down to 15, 15, and 15. Is that 60?
That's 45.
That's 45. Okay, so then we do another 15,
15.
right? So let's say if we've got 4 sets of 15, that's a low group, and I'm just throwing this out for example, because we know you don't, know your kids yet. But that could be a low group, an average group, and a high group. Okay, and so you can use this to kind of say, okay, if I've got 5 days out of the week, well, every day you're gonna see low,
Right.
okay? And then you might have, and when I did it, I named mine by team names. So I had Duke, UNC, Marshall, so forth and so on. So
Okay.
it might be that I'm gonna see UNC, and then Marshall, and then Duke, and then Penn State. Okay, and this might be Monday. Well, then Tuesday, I might see UNC, I might see HPU, Duke, and Marshall. So as you can see, my highest group, which would be Penn State, I'm not seeing them on Tuesday. Okay, on Wednesday,
So then so they've got to have something that's going to last them the full 60 minutes of independent work that's going
and it could be that they do, 30 minutes of independent reading.
Right,
And
right.
30 minutes of a activity.
right,
So then Wednesday, all I'm doing is rearranging. So I'm
Okay.
seeing UNC every day because they're my
The
lowest team.
okay, that makes sense.
And so then, maybe today I'm gonna come back and check in with Penn State,
Okay,
who's my highest group.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna see, my average group and my other average group,
okay,
okay? And so we're just continuing to do this day after day after day.
okay,
Okay, and so if you do the 5, 10, 15, 20, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that's 60.
Mhm.
Okay, so it may be, that's the whole time, but
Mhm.
again, if you're only seeing them for 15 minutes, this has gotta be uninterrupted, concise, time that is really doing there now. And I will be honest with you, the last time I taught, I usually saw 3 groups a day.
right,
Which of course I don't remember how much time I had, but I only saw 3 groups a day. But of course, how many groups you have, how many groups you see, all of that is gonna depend on, okay, your kids.
right,
It's gonna depend on what they're missing, what their levels are, what are your numbers, so how many kids do you have to have in a group, so forth and so on. All that's gonna evolve around that.
is it okay if I extend this time? Like, what if I've pulled my low group first and they're just not getting it? Do I spend more time with them, or do I just abandon the lesson and come back the next day and try to fix,
Well,
readjust?
Of course, you've already planned all these things.
Right.
But that's where you have to do the on-the-spot adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to, is it that they're at a frustrational level
Right.
and they kind of cut it off anyway, so
Right.
we need to pick this back up tomorrow? Or, is it you've got another, trick that you can pull out of your hat and, go show them something on the computer
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna help them get it? I think that's gonna just really depend on you.
Okay.
What I would say is you don't wanna change the structure too often,
Okay.
because that's gonna get kids confused. Like if, they get used to those 15-minute
Right.
rotations. Well, then 3 days this week, you've kept this group for 30 minutes.
Right.
Like that's gonna get you behind, and that's gonna get the kids all out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say not to change it so often. Every
Mhm.
now and then, yes, but don't, kids need the consistency.
Now, and I think this is where I try to get too much and get in my head and try to do too many things, because then it's like I feel like if I'm switching 15 minutes, then the kids out here need to be switching every 15 minutes into some new activity, or
Well, they could or they could not. It's all gonna depend on what the activity is. Typically, especially in the lower grades, the kids do switch every time. However, it's all gonna depend on what you've got the kids out here doing.
okay,
You're teaching 4th grade, so your assignments
Right.
or the practice that they're doing could take longer
Right.
than 15 minutes. So it could be that, maybe they only switch twice
okay,
instead of all 4 times, because it's just really gonna depend on what you have them doing.
mm-hmm.
I see personally, your assignments taking longer,
Mm-hmm.
so it may take longer than 15 minutes. I also see the increased need for stamina in the independent reading
Right,
piece.
right.
So it could be that, they're doing one activity a day and they're doing 30 minutes of self-selected reading.
Okay.
Because we know that time with text is crucial.
We've talked a little bit about accountability and stuff. When they're doing that self-selected reading, do I need to expect some kind of end product at the end of that, or is it okay for them just to do that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I would say that, sometimes it's okay for them just to read, and they need to understand that, okay, this week or, today you're just reading.
Mhm.
Because we want them to,
We want to see have some pleasure in it.
Yeah, we want them
There's not always a written
enjoyment.
assignment at the end of reading.
Exactly. And then I would say
Mhm.
sometimes, they're gonna have the accountability piece. I did
Okay.
literature circle,
Mhm.
which is basically where the kids would read a chapter a day. And when they read a chapter, they had the same questions to answer about each chapter. They had to give me a summary of the chapter. They had to predict what was gonna happen next. They actually got to draw a little picture, which, brought in the fun piece. But they did that at the end of each chapter. So again, it's all gonna depend. I think
Okay.
that you need to have both. But I think, going forward, I would love to once you get things started, of course, let you get out and see your other teammates as
Right.
well. But what I would love for you to do is, maybe by the time school starts, something like that, why don't you work on a 5-day plan? Okay, that kind of lays out some groups, kind of the way that you would lay it out.
Mhm.
So then what we can look at then is, okay, number one, the instruction that you're planning.
Mhm.
Does it look like it's too long, too elaborate? Does
Okay.
it look like it's going to, contain all the parts of a lesson but be broken down into those 15-minute increments?
Mhm.
And then while you're doing that, think of, some of the things that you teach at the beginning of the year. So think of, okay, while you're doing that, what could the rest of the kids be doing? Okay, what could the other groups be doing? And I think if you can kind of work out a framework like that, then, we can have a follow-up conversation about, okay, does this look like this is something that would work going forward?
Okay.
Because again, you know, it's not like we're gonna start small group instruction day one.
Right.
You know, you gotta get to know your kids, you gotta get your procedures and everything in place. And then once you start it, it's not like you're gonna see a group the first day, cause you've gotta get the kids acclimated to it. Now, the good thing is, you're teaching 4th grade, so more than likely, these kids have been doing small group instruction since kindergarten.
Mhm.
So they're gonna be used to the whole process and centers and things. It's just more about getting them used to your process.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
You know, again, I think that you're doing a great job, I really do. And I think that this is really going to, you know, bump up your test scores dramatically, because kids are gonna be able to get that quality time with the teacher. You know, they're gonna be able to fill in the gaps and things of that nature. And you know, it's very simple. Being able to do this is then gonna transfer over to your intervention and enrichment
Right.
block,
Right.
because it's kind of the same process.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Completely.
Do you have any questions or anything, or?
No, I thank you for showing me all this. I'm actually excited about trying some of it out and trying to come up with it, and you know, definitely want to put some things out and run them past you again, and kind of get your thoughts after.
Yeah, and I would definitely say, you know, just like the videos I pulled up, pull up some of those
Okay.
videos when you have time. You know, it's great. You know, one of the best learning opportunities I ever had, I had a teacher that was down the hall from me, and I used to, when I would walk by her room, I would just stop and look. And that was just how I learned. So just, you know, pulling up some of those videos and just seeing what people are doing and how they're doing it, you know, is a great way to kind of get more acclimated and hopefully make you feel more comfortable. Because you can actually, you know, I can sit here and tell you this all day, but when you see somebody do it, it's so much more real to you. So, yeah, so let's do that. Why don't you, you know, when we start those work days, you know, come in, you know, we'll find some time and sit down to just kind of discuss this and look at kind of what you thought about. Because of course, I know you're thinking and planning, even though it's the summertime. But yeah, I appreciate you coming in, and I look forward to this year and all the great things that'll happen.
Thank you. I think it's gonna be a great one.